Welcome to the final part of our heritage talk on Hollis Croft and Sheffield steelmaking history.
So those people who went to theaters and circuses and who worked wore shoes like this. And this doesn't look particularly nice because they are remains of various leather shoes that people were wearing at the time, which we are able to reconstruct and see. You can see this one here, for example, almost complete. The rest of them are parts of soles and heels. People at the time smoked pipes like this. These are locally manufactured. Some of them are just stems that we have found. Some of them are also bowls. Some of them bear marks, maker's marks. Some of them are beautifully decorated. These on the right-hand side are remains of fragments of various different plates that were found on site. And also this little thing here is a fragment of a bone handle. As I said earlier, this was and a big production, big manufacturing sites, not only metal, but also everything else that contributed to the final product. We have also found various different types of brick. This is relatively modern. This is a 20th century brick that was made in Sheffield, if there was any doubt. It's archaeologists love things that actually say what they are, when are they made, and who made them. And sometimes we are lucky, like with this brick. There is a sharpening stone. We have found loads of different size stones for grinding, sharpening, and things like that. So what I'm showing you is just a handful of the finds, just for an illustration. We have found hundreds and hundreds of these. But as it is, we have also came across this, and this is a medieval coin. And this was a interesting find from loads of different points of view. First of all, we haven't found anything else medieval on site. We know that at medieval times, Hollis Croft was an agricultural field. There were no dwellings, there were no developments, nothing of that kind that we know of was going on. We also don't have a single other medieval secured feature. So what is this medieval coin doing at Hollis Croft? And also, what is this medieval coin doing within one of the pubs? This was found inside what it used to be the Cock Pub. And I have to confess here in front of 156 of you that I said, oh, that's fake. And colleagues who know better said, no, this is a long cross penny, this is medieval. And I said, no, this is definitely fake. I mean, what is medieval coin doing on this side? There was nothing medieval, and there were an awful lot of fake coins in the 19th century, and I bet that this is just one of the things that was kept in a pub as they would. So they said, right, okay, let's bet. So I've put £5 on this not medieval coin, only to lose those £5 because the coin was we didn't want to damage it, we didn't want to do any intrusive chemical or metallurgical analysis because the coin had yet to be preserved, described. So we have taken it to a local jeweler who scanned this and said, oh no, this is real. There is silver and gold in it. So I do know what I talk about, but not all the time. And I definitely didn't know what I was talking about when I was looking at that medieval coin. Nevertheless, it's one of the interesting finds, one of those things that kind of throw you back and you go, what is this doing here? I still don't know what that was doing here. It's probably that fell out from, I don't know, somebody's pocket in medieval times, or someone in the 19th century, 18th, 19th century has found this medieval coin and kept it in a pub, or it was introduced from somewhere else when the site was leveled. As I said, there's a huge difference between the top and the bottom of the site, almost 20 meters. So, but it's a interesting fine medieval coin from Hollis Croft. More usual or things that we expected to find are these things. These are fragments of crucibles, and they are used several times. They are heavily encrusted, corroded, and broken. Crucibles were originally made clay and then laid and filled with chopped blister steel and few other ingredients, and then exposed to a very high temperature to be melted into and purified into a better steel that was used for more precise works. This is, as you can see there, it's all brown, so that's ferrous, that's iron. But we also have found one crucible which was green at the bottom, and that is copper. Copper alloy gives that green color, which is another brilliant thing about Hollis Croft. So now we know that not only the ferrous that iron was converted into steel, we know that the other metals were also used to be purified, to be better, and then made into, for example, parts of various different clocks or any other finer products. And these are the two crucible furnace holes that we have found on site. There are records that there was a crucible furnace with 9 and 11 holes. We couldn't go and investigate on either side of those just because of our site area restrictions and health and safety, but nevertheless we have demonstrated that at least one crucible furnace was there. And this is how crucible furnaces look. This is a cross section. So this thing here, the remains of, I've showed you those encrusted crucibles, they look like this. They were positioned and then the heat, they were exposed to heat, covered, the hole was covered with metal lids, and then there were big chimneys taking the air out, and that was controlled. So the air, so if you're on the temperature, the strength of the temperature centrifuge was controlled by controlling air. This is how one of the crucible furnaces look in cross section. This is a stack of crucibles that were drying. They're made ready to be used. There are two which are cooking, if you want. They have iron and other things in melting, and then these are large chimneys that are taking the hot air out. The best example, and probably one of my favorite things in Sheffield, is Abbeydale Industrial Estate, and I highly recommend, as soon as now, these days, these strange times that we live in, you can go, please do go and visit the site if you haven't. You can see a stack of crucibles here, and this is a crucible building with a furnace and massive chimneys. So this is a typical, when you see a chimney like that anywhere in the country, especially in Sheffield, if there are any left, either underground or above ground, they indicate crucible furnaces. This is just, I'm not saying that the Hollis Croft look exactly like this, because this is a countryside, this is a large building, but it looks something like this. It most certainly was at least one large building, which was probably made of brick there. This is stone, this is stone roof, slate. Sheffield City crucible furnaces were probably not made of stone and slate. There was no need for that, but brick was probably used. However, everything else in the crucible furnace is exactly the same. So this is the cross section of that crucible furnace in Abbeydale, and that is how Hollis Croft operated as well. You can see different holes, and these are two of them we have found. These are the metal lids. This is the pot making underground, and this thing here is controlling air in and out. These are the two guys. We know that it's men who were employed that are now tipping melted liquid steel into one of the molds, and then here people delivering and collecting goods. This is how that looked, and this is recreated in the actual furnace. These are the pits, the holes with lids. That's a crucible that has been, now there is nothing pouring out, but there will be hot steel coming out into the mold. And here is an illustration exactly what is going on, just on a smaller scale. But most of the time, these places would also had going further on what happens with the products from these molds. So in this case, these are files and probably sews and so on and so forth. In the middle of the site, where those little two circles, dash circles were, we have found exactly what those two circles depict, and these are cementation furnaces, and they are probably the best preserved, they were best preserved cementation furnaces in Sheffield, not the only ones excavated. Wessex Archaeology and Arcus excavated several others in Sheffield, but these were beautifully preserved. Now, what you can see here is, you're probably looking saying, what is this? This is a mess. There's an awful lot of bricks and stone, and you're absolutely right. But if you zoom your eye, if you zoom on this part here, this is a chest, one of the chests, one of the cementation furnaces, and here's just a cross section of another one. Everything else, this, for example, here is an access tunnel. This is the building that it was surrounding, and I'll show you in a minute how that looks. Brickwork around. These are the stone bases, here arches. And on the left-hand side, these are later additional things that are related indeed to converters, but are later than this feature here and this feature here. Okay, so this is how the site looks from the Hollis Croft street. This Hollis Croft is here. We are now looking south. These are the later access points, flues, chimneys, floors, etc. Here is one chest for the cementation furnace, and here is another one. And I'm deliberately doing circles, so there is one circle around here, one circle around there, and these are the two circles that you've seen on the 1850s OS map. This is how the cementation furnace looked. So what these things here are these. So they're stone chests. The access points, you can see that's this here with stoke holes, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And what we haven't found are the brick constructions above the ground. They are not there at the time, to no surprise, because they have been demolished by the later developments. But nevertheless, all this have survived, all the changes and all the 20th century works, demolishing and improvements, refurbishing, and we're still there when we excavated the site in 2017. This is how the cementation furnaces look, and what they do, they convert iron into blister steel. You put iron bars into chests, you pack them tightly, make sure that there is no air. Those iron bars, as we know now from the background research, come from Sweden and Germany, mostly from Sweden. They are then sealed, and they're exposed to a high temperature for 5 to 7 days. And what you get is the called blister steel, and it's called blister steel because when you take out those bars, they have bubbles, they have the surface, their surface look like blisters, and hence the name. This is the cross section. So what we have found on the site are remains of one chest and another chest, the surrounding buildings, and up to this level. Okay, we haven't found anything above that. We know that these cones, upside down ice creams, if you want, were built on stone base, and then they were brick. This stone, which is factory stone, locally sourced around Sheffield, was used to build chests, and it's the reason this particular stone was used because it expands and contracts when it's hot. It doesn't crack. One of the most important things that we have come across at Hollis Croft, if you kind of want to just focus on specifics of the cementation furnace, are the prints of the bars that were laid in the chest. And this black material was a combination of grinding leftovers, but also charcoal and coal. And when burned in solid, it's called crozzle, and it's a very Sheffield specific word and expression. You probably know that if you burn your bacon, you crozzled your bacon. You don't burn bacon in Sheffield. It's either crozzled or it's not. So that's that crozzle. What we now know, up to the Hollis Croft excavation, we know that the crozzle was at the base of the chest. We now know that even the sides of those coffins, chest coffins, were laid packed by as tight as possible, so there is no air. So now we know that it's not only floor, but the entire interior of the chest was tightly packed. I have mentioned a couple of checking points, access points, if you want. This is one of the clearing stoke holes, and then there is another. There's a small tunnel which was going underground under the entire construction of the cementation furnace. We have also came across some large tunnels, deep, long, almost 4 meter underground. We haven't excavated them because that was, again, too dangerous and there was no need. We have proven that they are there. And as I said, in addition, we have a later development here. This is, I think, we don't have direct evidence for that, but there is everything to suggest too that that is probably now of a late 19th, early 20th century gas, probably Bessemer process, which follows cementation crucible furnaces, just an improvement of speed, the quality and the technology of the iron being converted into steel. And how do I know that that is that at Hollis Croft? Well, there is a photo of it beside the 19th century map, the physical evidences of archaeological evidences on site. Chris Chewit said, look, Millie, there is a photo from the early 20th century. And these are the two chimneys and big cementation furnaces that we have found. This is how Hollis Croft looked at the early 20th century. Here is the cementation furnace. That's that arched entrance that I mentioned on the 19th century, and the buildings surrounding the yard that was in middle. This is now Hollis Croft, and the same buildings looking a bit later. This is 1950s, 1960s, when the buildings when the area belongs entirely to Footprint Tools. And this is how the building looked before it went down and before the excavation started. So this is a story, a circle. We're back to the beginning of the history of Hollis Croft. I am still to produce, we are still to issue an academic article. And in addition to that, we are doing a comic book, which will put together all this information for people who prefer to read that information in a comic book. It's just something different that we are doing. So this was the story of Hollis Croft, but it was in real life the story of Sheffield and Sheffield history of steel making industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching the final part of our heritage talk on Hollis Croft and Sheffield steelmaking history, and thank you to Milica Rajic for giving an in-depth overview of the site and its history. Keep an eye out for future heritage talks across our social media outlets.